Hello, everybody. Welcome back to School of Love. Here we are with David and Mitsue Wolfenberger. Yeah, welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
um, yeah, so would you guys prefer to be called Uncle David and Aunt Mitsue, right?
That's fine. Uncle
Yeah.
Dave and that Mitsue. Hmm.
Okay, good. I live in Germany now, and I had to get used to the culture here, and here they just say first names. So that was really weird for me in the beginning because I just came from Korea where you definitely don't say anybody's first name if they're older than you. So yeah. Okay, Uncle Dave. So
Yeah,
welcome.
when we first had kids, and all the second gen were younger, it was kind of an experiment what they should call the first gen. And some like
Yeah.
to be called Mr. and Mrs. And I didn't like that. But yeah, everybody, most second gen just call me Uncle Dave. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I like it. I've tried it in Germany, and then they'll be like, ha ha ha, don't do that again. It's just somehow too awkward. But yeah, I do like that kind of culture of uncles and aunts. Yeah, so welcome, and just so we can get to know you a bit better, I'll just start with you, Aunt Mitsue, where were you born? And yeah, where were you raised? Because maybe you moved around a lot.
I was born in Japan, Ibaraki, about 2 hours from Tokyo. So it's kind of
Hmm.
middle island. And I joined the church when I was 20 and
Hmm.
started to move around. And when I turned 23, I came to America and I went to England. Now, before
Wow.
that, I went to Korea and everywhere. So um, that would be about 50 years ago, and and here we are. Oh, I thought I would go back to England. I liked England. I did home
Hmm.
church, and so I left everything back there. But father matched us. Those who are matched with Americans, he said, "You stay here." I never went back there until high noon. Went back there.
Okay.
High noon.
Wow.
This was her dream to move to America and have an American man sweep her off her feet.
Her unknown dream until it happened.
Just his dream.
So you learned English in England then?
No, so I joined the IOWC in Japan. So
Hmm.
I had some English because I had witnessed with Western people, and we went to Korea, all traveled all over in Korea, and always speaking in English. The leaders are English and partner the app with English speaking people. And I came to America. So America is maybe more. I learned English in America more. And I went to
Hmm.
England, yeah. So England English is a little different. But yeah.
Yeah, nice. And where did you grow up, Uncle David?
I grew up in the Midwest, in a farm town west of Chicago. Joined the church I met the church when I was 18, joined about a year later. 17, actually, I met the church, joined a year later. And we've been blessed for 41 years now. We were in Madison Square Garden Blessing. We moved out here shortly afterwards, maybe like a year later. We moved out here to the Northwest where we met you. You were a
That's
little
right.
girl, and before your family moved to Korea.
Right.
Yeah, we have a business here, a crab business. I just got back. I just got done unloading two boats. The rest of the crew were gone buying clams, and so I was by myself. But I did my work, and I'm back here now.
Wow. That sounds so exciting because it sounds like a whole world that I have never experienced. Sounds really
Yeah.
cool. Just some history for our listeners. I grew up in Seattle, and I don't know if you guys live directly in Seattle now, or where do you live?
No, we live on the coast
Hmm, okay.
where the crabs are at.
We got to get to the crafts.
It's about 2.5 hours from where you used to live. We
One
used
and a
to live
half.
in Seattle, and that's how
Yeah, we were.
our parents and you.
Mhm.
Very cute girl.
My parents used to babysit your kids a bit, and I remember your kids from camp,
Mhm.
and yeah, but like, yeah, like you said, then we moved to Korea when I was 12, and so I feel like so much happened after that. So it's like I know you guys, but yeah, there's still a lot more to get to know. And so then at some point you started School of Love when um, that was back in 2018, I think, or I don't know if there was like, yeah, how did that all start with School of Love?
Okay. Yeah, we had worked with blessed couples and started a marriage initiative, a marriage enrichment initiative about 12 years ago. And then 9 years ago, we began High Noon. And that was, yeah, that was in when we recognized how prolific pornography was with our second generation and first generation too. I struggled with pornography myself. And so when we realized how prolific it was, then and we started helping young people, mostly young people anywhere from like 20 to 23. The That was the age of most of the people that we worked with. And by that time, they had already had a pornography habit. Most of them had been struggling with pornography for 10 years. So we experienced how difficult it is for somebody to get over a pornography habit of 10 years, half their life. And we realized that we really need to start looking upstream and be getting to the kids. Well, they've had a 10-year porn habit. And really the initially we thought, well, teaching young people about the dangers of porn and about sexuality would be the mission of School of Love. But then we realized that really it's the parents that need to be teaching their children about this. They're the parents that the best place for a young person to a child to hear about sexuality is from their parents who created them out of sex, and they can share the beauty and the vision for help the children to create a vision for their sexuality. Also, telling them about the dangers of pornography and masturbation. So, yeah, that was the origins of School of Love. And so, really, it started pretty soon after we started High Noon. I remember at the Set Free Summit, that was a year after we began High Noon. We went to a summit, a Christian summit with 1,000 ministers. It was organized by Josh McDowell. He's a very famous Christian televangelist. And at that time, we had 40 unificationists there. During the breakouts, we would have meetings, and one of the breakouts was a breakout for, we didn't call it School of Love back then. We called it SPEC. Actually, it was Sex Purity Education Curriculum, and it morphed into School of Love. Actually, Jario and Lena Gavin, they came up with that name.
I think around that time, the second gen are having children. First, we were thinking about second gen. We needed to help second gen. But the second gen are growing up and they started having children and sending children to school. And the school is teaching the sex education. And it's such a messed up. So, we wanted to help second gen parents how to like combat or really teach them the real sex education from home. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking. Yeah, we have to help the parents, young parents with young children. We have to start very young. 13 years teaching pornography danger of it's too late. So that's we needed to do the work on that. And Jario and Lena, they wanted to make the little kids curriculum, how to,
Hmm.
yeah, that's how it developed as a school of life.
Right.
At the time that we were raising our children, we knew that the schools were teaching sex education curriculum that we we didn't really like. It was, instead of teaching abstinence, they taught about condoms and about um, how to not get pregnant, how to have safe sex. And we didn't think that was good, but nowadays, oh my gosh,
Mm.
it's so different. The things that they're teaching, that the schools are forced to teach nowadays, they would have been people in our generation, they would have totally been against that. But nowadays the culture, society has changed so much. There's become such an acceptance of same-sex marriages and uh, changing your gender, many things like that are not the way that we want our kids to be taught.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say, in our last call, we were having basically an interview for me to work with School of Love. And I remember you asked me, so have you spoken with your children about sex or pornography? And I said, actually not. And I'm so grateful that you asked because it's pushed me to think about that. Why haven't I? And there was really nothing to stop me. And so I did. And I've been talking on all kinds of topics with them, and it's been really amazing. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I've just dipped my feet in the water, but I feel like it's actually been so beneficial. I am excited to share that with other parents. And yeah, it's I can just say thank you. And I think the thing is, nobody had ever asked me that. Why haven't you have you even spoken to your kids about sex? Nobody asked me. Um, and yeah, we just don't even consider that that's really our job as parents, even though it's such an important part of life.
That's right. And you're not unusual, Amelia, and not a bad parent because you didn't ask your children about pornography or teach them um, perhaps about sexuality. It's something that your parents probably did not teach you, and their parents didn't teach them. And it's just been my parents never, I don't believe that the word sex was ever spoken in my house. I cannot think of a time when it was. I know if it would have been spoken in my house, my mother would have she would have probably fallen out of her chair, and that worked for me actually. It worked for me. I didn't come out too crippled as a result of it, but then the culture when I grew up was so much different than the culture today. Um, we didn't have these things here where you could access pornography in a just in a heartbeat, whenever you wanted to, wherever you wanted to. We didn't have um, that temptation.
Right.
So yeah, nowadays it's even though, and Amelia, even though that worked for me, and it's been working for parents raising their children, and they managed to raise children that were not too dysfunctional. Even though that is the case, it's not the ideal. The ideal is really for parents to have the freedom and the confidence to speak with their children about sexuality, and for them to convey to their children that this is not something to be ashamed of. It's God created everybody with sexual organs, and
Hmm.
sexual organs are not bad. Uh, they're they're the part of the human body that God put the most effort into and the
Hmm.
most heart into. They're the part of the human body that husbands and wives share love, and they create children, and they propagate God's lineage with. It's such a beautiful dimension that has a bad name. It just has a
Mm.
really bad rap, a bad connotation. And so, even though probably we would not have been talking about sexuality or encouraging parents to talk about sexuality with their children had it not been pornography, for pornography and for the
Mm.
dangers. But I believe that there's so much opportunity now that we're forced to talk about pornography. Literally, parents, you cannot afford to not have this conversation with your children about pornography. If you relegate this to the schools or to the if you don't do it, somebody else is going to. Your children are curious about sex, and that's not a bad thing. How God created them. They're interested in sexuality. It's how God created them. And it's a good thing. So, parents, we need to be the ones to talk to our children about sexuality and about pornography, because if we don't, they're going to learn some really, really distorted, unhealthy, destructive education about sex. And they're also going to develop habits that it could really block them from having the beautiful relationship that you want them to have with a spouse.
Thank you so much for those words of guidance. I think they're so valuable. And it's true that, yeah, I would never say pornography is helping us in any way, but like you said, it does force us to have this conversation. And I also feel like if we're going to talk about the dangers, we need to also tell our kids and also live the example of showing how it is so beneficial to, like, it's a beautiful thing and it really connects us as a couple, and show them what kind of happiness that can bring to a couple. Yeah. Yeah, it brings life into this world.
Even sex, teaching your children about sex, where would it, you know, uh, the children, if they learn it in school, they're going to learn in a very unemotional way, a very, you know, this plus this equals this kind of a mathematical way that sex works. But it's not like that. There is such a miracle behind sex and behind reproduction.
Mm.
It's such a miracle, and it can be taught that way. It can be taught. God's heart can be. We can share God's heart with our children. That the Creator wanted His children to experience what He experienced when He
Mm.
created Adam and Eve. You know, and um, Amelia, the what a joy it is, the birth of your first child, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
Mhm.
second and third.
exactly. So that's how parents can teach our children about sexuality. You know, not just teaching them the mechanics of sex, but to teach God's heart behind it. And you know, like Father was so eloquent, uh, teaching us about love. It says the sexual organ is the holy palace of love, life, and lineage. Such a beautiful way of teaching about sex.
Exactly. So what kind of hope does School of Love give parents? You kind of mentioned it, but yeah, what do you think?
I think if you can talk about sex, children will speak about everything. No? So
I think so
the
too.
relationship, children relationship would be deepened. Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes me think about because often there's this teenager time, right, where it's so hard to connect with your child at this time, right? It's just kind of there might be some exceptions, but like I just think of my time and also my siblings and lots of, if I just see around me that it's just normal that, oh yeah, they want to be alone and you kind of just leave them alone, and accept that, yeah, okay, they're a teenager or something, but it makes me wonder maybe this is the missing link, just having these conversations about sexuality, because when they're a teenager, they're kind of it's in your face. They're really faced with so many more challenges, and their bodies are developing and everything. And I would just wonder, yeah, not having these conversations with their parents, they're really lost. And yeah, it makes me also think I'm just so glad my daughter is just a preteen and that we've had this talk, and I hope that it's a foundation for yeah, a healthy teenagerhood for her where I can really that we can even be really close during this time too. Because I think during that time I kind of blocked my mom out, and yeah, there weren't so many conversations talking about anything, like you said, Aunt Mitsue. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also it's a good area for parents to be able to talk to our children. It's also great for children to be able to talk to parents, and for us to convey to our children that even make a mistake in this area, please come to me. Please tell me.
Mhm.
And to be ready for when that happens. If your child comes to you and tells you that they've been masturbating or that they saw pornography, be prepared and show them. It's so beautiful. We can show them grace because
Mhm.
um, we unificationists, we follow the Messiah, and we believe the way to go is the way of perfection, and it seems like that's our standard. Anything less than that, we don't talk about,
Mhm.
and that's not the reality. Is that mistakes are made. I can't think of any time in providential history, in divine principle, when the providence went according to plan A, there was always a um, plan B and a plan C, and just be ready to that Of course, we hope that our children will go plan A, the straight and narrow. But if mistakes do happen, and just I guess just be ready. Uh,
Mhm.
I've heard some really beautiful testimonies from young men whom I've mentored. One young man, I had encouraged him to go to his parents and to because he had been in Ascend, the pornography recovery group, for quite a while, and I encouraged him to confess to his parents and to uh, tell them his goals, what he wanted, and he did, and he had been on a streak for a while, and then he had a slip up, and he reported to his mom, and she showed him grace, and then he had another slip up like a week later, and he shared with his mom. He was just so dejected and so distraught, and he went back into his room, and his mom came in and sat down on the bed beside him, put her arm around him, and said, um, Joey or whatever his name was, uh, we will always love you. That is so beautiful, and that's the kind of relationship we want with our kids, right?
Yeah. I feel like those are God's words, right? I will always love you. And that's what we want to represent as God's love for our kids. So that grace is such a beautiful thing that I think anyone is very grateful to receive. Yeah. Yeah. So how did this conversation about sex develop in your family? How many kids do you have, actually? 7. Wow. So amazing.
Children. Yeah, we are not any different than your parents were. Amelia, we did not know these things that we're talking about now. We didn't know when our children
Mhm.
were growing up. I wish we at some point we had the talk with our children. I had the talk with the boys, and I think Mitzi had the talk with the girls. And that was we took this a book and we read the chapter on preparing for adolescence, and we read that together with them. So they knew the mechanics, and they may have already known by then, but that's what we had. We had the talk, which is one talk more than I got.
It's always getting better. Everything's getting better, right? Every generation.
But we realized that, and I realize now that one talk, just like the first time we found that we found that our children had been watching pornography, we had to talk with them, and we just naively assumed that we had this talk. It's done. Let's not ever mention it again. You know,
They got
you got it.
You understand? You're good to go.
That's not the way it happens.
Right.
You know, it's yeah, temptations. Life is cyclical, and these feelings and temptations that they had once, they will come again. And you know, so you need to, if you catch your child looking pornography, or if they, God bless them if they have the courage to tell you that, then, you know, just really praise them for that and say, wow, I know how hard this must have been for you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, be sure to uplift them. And if maybe you did catch your child looking at pornography, then they report to you. If they report to you later, or if you ask them about it later and they share with you, you just acknowledge the how grateful you are that they're honest with you. Ask them, you know, what can I do? How can we help you? How can we help you to be successful? Because we really want you to have an outstanding marriage and a beautiful, and your sexual relationship with your future spouse is going to be a big part of that. It's going to be a beautiful part of that. And we want it to be perfect. You know, we don't want it to be clouded by some unrealistic expectations that you learned from watching porn stars act out some fantasies on the internet. You know, we don't want you to be to develop a sexual template that is on somebody that's not your wife. It should be like we should be imprinted on our spouse, our future spouse. And they, you know, they should be the one who triggers that that sexual arousal cycle to begin. The sexual pleasure cycle. And so that is what parents want for their children. And you know, it's only through having these open conversations with them, open and repeated conversations throughout their life. That's the only way that they're going to develop in a healthy way, navigate all the temptations in society, and come out a whole person.
The school, not School of Love, Core of the Universe has this one man, one woman, and the penguin. Yeah, so they find this spouse. They have been gone for a long time. But among a whole sea of this head, right? And they find the one from the sound. And in that, it said, God put that attraction to one person. You are supposed to have that one. And the matching goes, and said, it's not really the one. You know, there are many, and you can choose from or something. But it said, God put the attraction to one person, one. And then when you are connected, then you don't want to leave. That attraction is so strong, and that was the God plan. So I think we can teach our children to. So like this, high noon is like purity education, not only pornography. Don't watch that, but it is like a purity education. You know, So I think it's a beautiful thing, and you are starting that. And
Mhm.
I was reading Hunjinim's speech, and then he said, "Do you remember the commercial of a potato chip? You cannot stop eating,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, more and more.
Potato chips, yeah.
Pornography is like that. So it's
Uh-huh.
best you don't take one, and that's where purity education can help to keep health and um, unhealthy one off from. And he said, not only you want more, but you want more varieties things too. Yes,
Mhm.
it seems like so much like this porn uh, addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an interview recently with um, a moral educator. Her name's Olga Vakulinskaya, and she also mentioned these days uh, it's just so hard for kids to be pure, and they really need us to support them as parents. Parents essentially, of course, it's great if your friends can support you, but yeah, it's not so realistic maybe in a school setting. Maybe BCs, hopefully. But yeah, essentially they really need us as parents like to really be there just to support them through this because like you said, pornography is it's on your phones, it's available at any moment, and not only our phones, it's available on our friends' phones.
Yeah, yeah.
So no matter how good I'm trying to be, yeah, we're faced with it all the time. And yeah, we really need to be their cheerleader through that.
Yeah, I can imagine that parents are wondering, well, how many conversations can I have with my child about sex? There's only maybe one way to do it. Am I just supposed to teach them about the mechanics, about the whole reproductive system, that it's bad? And is it okay if I put a plug in?
Sure, go for it.
All right, this is the Core of the Universe book, and we have it in several different languages. There's up here, there's a few languages up there. Well, we have it in 8 different languages, okay, including Russian and French for your audience there in Europe.
Perfect.
And this is really excellent. We have founders, True Father, spoke about absolute sex a lot during the latter 2 decades of his life. And there's a lot of precious education in here. What we've done is we've studied all of Father's text about absolute sex, and we group them together in themes. The themes are like the first night, God's purpose for the sexual organs, absolute sexual purity, like that. And we group together Father's quotes about that. We go over them and um, we give a summary on them and kind of our interpretation and how you can apply these words to how we can apply these words to our lives. It's got a beautiful story in each chapter to help you talk about sex with your kids without talking about sex. And it makes it a lot less awkward. So this is a really great Hundake book for parents and children. There's nothing in it that is triggering, that will trigger a child, to do something that they, maybe to pursue a bad habit.
Mhm.
So that is a really good thing to go over with your children, for parents and children to read about sexuality together as a family. I remember when our kids were growing up, we would read Hundake, and sometimes absolute sex would be in there, the words absolute sex or the sexual organ. And if it was one of our children's turns to read it, well, Amelia, did you ever have that experience?
Yes, and I remember I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. I'm probably as red as an apple. It was really, really difficult. I thought about that recently and I was like, where did that come from? Right? Because
Yeah.
like it's my parents never really talked to me about it. So I just had built up some sort of picture of sexuality and it became a very, very embarrassing thing to talk about.
And if anything, when we did that, when we had Hunduke in that manner, and our siblings were embarrassed, our parents were embarrassed to talk about it, what does that teach kids?
Yeah.
It teaches them that this is something embarrassing. This is something I shouldn't be talking about, you know?
Mhm.
So, so it's really neat. There's like exercises in the back of every chapter,
Discussion.
discussion questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is True Father's revelation about the sexual organs as the core of the universe make you think or feel? And yeah, it's just a really beautiful opportunity for parents and children to talk about sex.
Yes. So, core of the universe. If anyone needs to get some more ideas or yeah, I think as well also good for the couple to remind you guys what do we want to live and pass on to our kids.
Yep, it's on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon in the US, in the UK, other places too. You can get, there's 9 translations altogether.
Okay. And is it I think I heard it's going to be on Audible soon or it's going to be an audiobook?
Yeah, we're working
Mhm.
on the audiobooks. Yeah.
Okay, so
Spanish is
soon
done.
available also.
Like
I
French is
see.
done, Spanish is done. Audio. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
not sure if they're available yet, but they're in the process of being made available.
That's great. So you kind of mentioned how this conversation developed in your own family, and yeah, you said we actually need these ongoing conversations. Is there anything else you wish you had done differently, or maybe are doing differently now? Is there, yeah, something that you've changed?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think I would really suggest if you're reading this with your children, studying it with your children, don't get the don't just study it on Audible or the audiobook, but get the actual physical book. I think
Mhm.
it's a lot more on your shelves.
But don't you think that is about like 13 years and up? It wouldn't be 5, 6 years old. But don't you think? Or 9 would be okay. 9 years.
I don't know. I think parents
Parents can read.
brings us to a good point. What is the right age, right? To talk to your kids about sex or about porn. I guarantee the right age is before you think is the right age.
Yeah.
So many parents have when I've encouraged them to talk about sex or about pornography with your children, they have said, "Well, my child's only 10, 12 years old. I don't, they may not have seen pornography yet. I don't think they have. I haven't noticed any signs of it. They're only 13. They're only 14. They're 15 years old. I guess it's too late, you know?" You know, and that's kind of how it is because it's an awkward conversation that is embarrassing to parents. And it can be an awkward conversation, but that can be you know, part of your lead in. This is a little awkward for mom, but I've been listening to these School of Love podcasts with Amelia, um, and I know that pornography is just everywhere. It's so easy to access on your computer, on the phone, and a lot of kids are sharing it in school. And I'm just wondering, how are you doing with pornography?
Mm.
You know, and this is it's a little awkward for mom or for dad, but let's have this conversation and just lead into it like that.
Open, open the
Yeah.
door, something like that.
Mhm.
So when we went to the high noon workshop, we had the and children, parents, children for a few hours. And first, like middle school and up, first we had both of them and Andrew speak about the pornography, and then they divide parents and children. Andrew would talk with children, and we talk with parents. And the parents do not think the children watch porn. Maybe if they are thinking it, I don't think they don't say, oh, they never watch. They don't say that. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. They have a good friend and all that. And on the other hand, Andrew have these children, and he doesn't ask who what, poem like that, but he put the question that is open. Andrew said everybody. He noticed everybody at once, or at least once they are confronted with the pornography.
One of the moms was so concerned and kind of second guessing herself. She had brought her 10-year-old to the program, and maybe I shouldn't have brought him. And anyway, then afterwards, she asked Andrew, and he said, all the kids have seen pornography. And she goes like that. Boy, that I was like, she was glad. I don't think she was glad that her child had seen pornography, but she was glad that she didn't ruin his innocence, maybe. And that's we have some concept about our children's innocence, and I guess ideally it would be good if they had grown up without being exposed to pornography, but we should be talking with them about sexuality at a young age in an appropriate way, even 5 years old, about their sexual organ, and 7 years old, 9 years, 10 years old. And we have come to realize that a prepared child is better than an innocent child. It's better that your child be prepared and not see pornography, even if they haven't seen pornography, than be innocent and to be exposed to pornography. It's not going to damage them for them to know that there are kids out there who are watching this stuff. If they don't know it yet, they will very soon know it. And so really it's not an advantage to wait until your child's seen porn before you talk to them. It's much better to talk to them before they see porn so they can be prepared. And hopefully you've developed some trust with your child, and you can tell them that if you see pornography, if one of your friends show you pornography, please come and tell mom or dad. And then when they do, don't say, you're never going to see that boy again. Yeah, that's not the right. Be very careful not to overreact. And you don't want to violate your child's trust.
Right.
About the preparedness, when especially Japanese sisters, they are very naive, very innocent, and they go to the breasting with bright rosy eye, and be matched with somebody, the brother who didn't tell anybody, and went to the matching and to the breasting. And she found out that he's watching porn, and she's so shocked. So anyway, she came to our workshop, and she said she wished she knew this. So many people are watching. She was so naive. She thought that her husband had no interest on such thing. But anyway, she came to our workshop and said she really needed to know this before the matching. So for the preparedness, it would be so unlikely if 80%, 85% boys are watching in the second gen of young people. It's very unlikely that your spouse has never, ever seen it. So it would be nice to prepare and have right kind of question and the grace in the heart when it's
Mhm.
happened. Right.
Yeah, so much good information. I really especially liked like what you said, Uncle Dave, about like it is awkward, but I think it's important to show that we're willing to be awkward. We're willing to talk about awkward stuff. Because if our kids think, oh, my parents don't want to talk about awkward stuff, then not only will they hide things about pornography or sexuality, there's so many other awkward topics, right? That they would also just not be willing to share. And I think that's actually really powerful to just be also vulnerable, even in the parent position. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you think having these open conversations can change the world? I believe it's possible. Like, I think there's so much potential in this, but what do you guys think?
We really see ourselves as bringing about a pure love movement in this world, and this is something that it's something the world needs. Without this, it's not just people of our faith who are going to grow up with distorted views about sex, but it's virtually everybody. It's not just in America, it's not just in Europe. Everywhere we've gone, everywhere they have a smartphone, everywhere children are curious, you know, they have this issue. Uh, and have we have such a we've been blessed with religious leader that we follow, spiritual leader, our true parents have spoken very openly about sex. Father said, "What is there to be ashamed of? I'm not ashamed in talking about something and talking about matters like this. If you're ashamed, it's a habit of the fallen world." So we can really be I believe that unificationists can really be the owners of this conversation. And you can imagine, like, if you've been having open conversations with your kids about sexuality, and then one of your kids' friends shows them porn on a smartphone, you don't watch that stuff. That's junk. That's not what I want. And maybe they're at your house, and maybe you're talking about sex with your child and his friends there, and he's going to think, "Wow, this is the only adult I've ever heard talk about sex and without turning 50 shades of red." And in a wholesome way too. It's the first time I've heard sex being talked about in a clean way, in a way that that makes it sound like it's something really beautiful that I can look forward to in the future. So yeah, I believe that these conversations will change the world. It's going to start in the home. You can imagine if you can imagine a world where the media and schools, they speak about sex in a respectful way. They don't encourage um, 30 different gender options or alternate lifestyles. They advocate one woman and one man as being important for a marriage. And this kind of world is these families, these wholesome families that are experiencing sex in the way that God created it to be experienced. That's really what's going to change the world. Where husbands, they are able to respect their wife and delay their gratification for their wife. And the wives are going to be able to respect their husbands and honor their husbands. And we each know each other's um, needs in this area. And it becomes a very beautiful part of our life that we invite God down into. When our children have this kind of vision, you don't have to be graphic to give your child that kind of vision. You can do it in a very beautiful way, a way that's gonna make them think, wow, this is something worth waiting for. And those pictures that are going around the school, that's not what I want. It's not how I would want my sister to be treated. It's not how I would want my mom to be treated. I believe that women need to be treated with respect. And same with women they need to view men as worthy of respect, not as objects of gratification. So this is really what the kingdom, the kind of stuff kingdom of heaven is built from. It's the brick and mortar of the kingdom of heaven. You take the core of life, which is our sexuality, is something that we've been, it's important to everybody. And we see this in a holy way. We see it in a respectful way. We treat it with respect, with sacredness, and it's going to change everything around you. When you have a rotten core, everything else, the whole apple will rot. When the core is good, when the core has integrity, then the entire fruit will be delicious and have integrity.
I think Father said we have to create the peer love movement, and we are the only one who can do it. So it starts from our movement. I do believe because we have true parents taught us. So with that in true parents teaching is like our light or guide. We can
Mhm.
create it. And that is the culture. We want to create the culture. Culture starts from the family and our community with this pure love mentality and respect, the honoring this core. So I see that's how the world would be uh, getting better. But we
Yeah.
need to do that.
So in our marriage, I open all the doors for Mitsue. I honor her like she's my queen. If you think of things if you've ever seen pornography, if you think of any of those scenes, most of them do not honor the opposite sex in that way. That's what we want to teach our children, to honor the opposite sex, honor all people as children of God, honor your brothers, honor your sisters as children of God, honor their most sacred parts. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I've been sharing with my friends here in this little town where we live, my new job, School of Love, and what it's all about, which is talking to our kids about sexuality, and all of them are like, they've been like, "Oh, can you give me some stuff?" Like, yeah, I need some tips. Like everybody's interested in this, and um, I also saw in this website, I think it was Covenant Eyes, they were explaining this is awkward for us because we're the first generations, I'll say generations because we're doing it together now to have to do this in the past. There has been there have been so many people in the world, but it's I think never been done. If it was, I would be like to know who and when and how they did it, but it seems like we're learning how to do this now. And yeah, like you said, I think it can really bring the world that God is aiming for. Um, we're being pushed. We talk about the last days somehow. We're being pushed to the edge. It's been a terrible world in regarding sexuality, but it's like pushing us all to the edge for us to all recognize this isn't what we want. This isn't a happy life. And I think lots of people see that whether they are in our movement or not. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, it's really exciting to be able to talk about this. And I just hope we can really grow to give parents the tools they need to really feel they can do it. And thanks so much for starting this.
Thank you for taking this responsibility. It's a big task.
Yes. Thank you, Amelia.
Thank you.
Let's see. I hope God will explain to me in detail what comes next. But yeah, so far I've been really honored, and I feel like also it's just a gift to my family. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, our goal is that anybody involved in High Noon or in School of Love, that their life is not diminished because of any sacrifice they make, any time or money they give, but they will be enriched. And also, I think, yeah, I absolutely want to extend this guarantee to parents who challenge having these awkward conversations with your children. Your life will not be diminished. Your relationship with your children will not be diminished. You will absolutely be enriched. If you don't succeed at first, keep trying.
Exactly. Enriched, yeah. I saw recently, yeah, there was this physicist talking on YouTube, and he was saying learning something new is uncomfortable, and no matter what. And we just have to be willing to get uncomfortable. So learning how to have these conversations will be uncomfortable, but yeah, like you said, it's going to be so enriching, and we're going to get better. It'll be less and less uncomfortable. Yeah. Yeah, I think we can wrap this up, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you guys. And yeah, you have so much wisdom to share.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.